Finance and Properties Committee to order. Today is Monday, November 18th. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll? Here.
Present.
Hey, Carrie, how you doing? Thank you. First, I want to call up Public Works. Commissioner. I'm going to start with her piece. I'm going to start with Commissioner. Good, how you doing? We didn't have director with us today, huh? Director didn't make it today? Okay, ordinance number 940, 2024, by council members Bishop and Griffin. This is a departmental request. It's an emergency ordinance authorizing Director of Public Works to enter into one or more contracts with Scadata, Inc. for professional services necessary to provide software, hardware, training, technical support, and maintenance for the parking access and revenue control system at Willard Park Garage and Gateway East Garage for the Division of Parking Facilities, Department of Public Works, for a period of 3 years. Okay. All right, Director, you going to speak on this?
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Committee. This piece for SCADATA is to establish services that will support the on-site or remote maintenance of parking equipment at the Willard Garage and at the Gateway Garages, including the replacement of parts and accessories, licenses, software modules, and operational controls. And basically, these are all the things that we're automating our parking now, as you see in each one of the garages, all the equipment and all the software that goes with it. I have Commissioner Kim Johnson here to answer any questions that you may have about this piece.
Okay, Commissioner. Okay, so we have on this the white paper 78,655. Where did that number come from, Commissioner?
Council Chair, the dollar amount that you see on the on that RL was an initial amount to cover us for the balance of this year. The Department of Finance needed something on the RL. However, if you look on the summary that we provided to you, we provided what our estimated amount would be that would cover us through the term of this agreement.
And that would encompass what period of time?
3 years.
3 years?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so so for 3 years, you're saying that it's roughly going to be 647,000. Is that what I'm saying?
The existing contract that we have now was at we were at about 647,000. But we're estimating that the value of this 3-year contract will be $500,000. We are no longer managing or operating the West Side Market parking lot, and so there'll be a decrease. We're anticipating that there'll be an additional decrease once the Gateway Garage is sold.
So so the last contract that we had, and it was from 2018,
It was
right?
2020 was our last agreement.
2020 was our last agreement?
Yes. So our last agreement was over a period of 4 years.
Okay.
Now this agreement will be for a period of 3 years.
Okay. So the prior agreement, we're losing one lot. We're not gonna be this. They're not gonna be
They're not
supporting that one lot.
That is correct. They're no longer supporting the West Side Market lot.
Okay. And the total amount of money that we spent managing the 3 lots was how much?
About $650,000. Based upon what
$650,000?
we had, yeah.
And we're saying that it's going to be the same pretty much to manage 2 lots?
No, what we're saying is that we're estimating about $500,000 to manage, operate, replace parts. And so our dollar amount is $500,000.
Okay, so if we're estimating $500,000, what's the $687,000 for it in our summary?
That figure is what our information that we were providing for the previous contract.
Okay. All right. Is there any, do we have any, Councilman Brian Casey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the Assistant Director, right? Director?
that's correct.
And Commissioner, right?
Commissioner,
Right.
yes.
And we know it. This is for 3 years?
That's correct. Through the chair to the councilman, that's
All
correct.
right, Mr. Chairman, to our directors, we don't own the Gateway East Garage, or at least we will not be owning it within 3 years. So why would we pay to upkeep the maintenance of the garage if we're not going to own it?
Through the chair to the councilman, I will let the commissioner get into the details. What we do, in the case that things fall through, we always want to make sure we're in place. This is an up to amount, and so if we don't have to use it, we don't necessarily have to pay the entire $500,000.
All right, when do we expect, Mr. Chairman, to the directors, when do we expect that sale to be finalized? I mean, we did that a couple of months ago, right?
Chair to the councilman, I do not know the date for the finalization of that purchase agreement.
But through the chair we do expect that to happen sometime next year, 2025. We just don't know exactly when. And on our end, we've always tried to plan for the worst, hope for the best. So in the case that it does take longer than we expect, we do want to have these things in place.
All right, let me ask this, Mr. Chairman, to the directors, who currently is profiting from the Gateway East Garage right now?
Chair to the councilman, right now, the Department of Public Works Division of Parking Facilities manages and operates the garage. All the revenue for that garage comes to the city.
And Mr. Chairman, to the director, we don't know when that's going to cease?
Council Chair to the councilman, I am not a party to the agreement. I understand that it should, they're finalizing and wrapping up that. I just cannot at this moment in time give you a date.
And Mr. Chairman, to the directors, once that sale is finalized, we will not be operating the SCADA,
This is good data.
the SCADA system. We're not responsible for any of the maintenance, any of the upkeep, nothing?
So through the chair to the councilman, we will still have it for Willard. We just won't
Right,
have
now I
it
know
there.
for Willard, but I'm talking about
That is correct.
the Gateway. I'm skeptical. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, is any other questions on ordinance 940? So, Director, you saying that this amount up to, we don't have that in the piece of legislation? That amount, we don't have that.
The 500,000?
Yeah, it says the cost of the contract or contract shall be paid for from fund, and it has the fund number, but it doesn't have an up to amount. Yeah, it doesn't have an up to amount on there.
Do you want to?
They can do
Is it professional service?
that. Yeah. Yeah.
There's no amount
Yeah, there's no amount on
at all.
there. No.
Is this it? And this, if I could, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the certificate of funds is only $78,650. So if we have a certificate of funds of only $78,000, where are we coming up with the 600.
So through the chair, I'm going to let through the chair to the councilman, I will let the commissioner speak to it. But if you take a look on the second page where we have the annual costs, you'll see that each year for the areas, those are the costs. So in the case, with Gateway, I do understand your hesitancy on that. Again, we put if we were to had to continue to operate Gateway, so that cost here, if you see on the second chart for Gateway, is pretty substantial. If we had to continue to
Is that-
operate it,
So
Where's
we don't
that at?
have
What are you
that.
looking at?
We don't have that.
I don't have that second page.
We got, in the executive summary, we've got a total of $687,599.
So
Yeah,
these
yeah,
were
Director,
sent
we
with
didn't,
the-
we didn't get, I went over this last night, we didn't get this.
Okay, those were sent with our.
Yeah,
You can hold on to that if you want.
okay. Here, I got one.
You got one? You got one.
Let me double check here, because I read over this stuff last night, and I didn't see all of this.
So, Mr. Chairman, to the directors, this is the breakout per year that you're expecting. Can you explain the parts not covered, and then,
Council Chair, to the councilman, the parts not covered would include, let's just say, a gate arm. If we needed to replace the column itself, we've had times when people will run through the gate, and so they'll break the gate arm, and we'll need to replace that so that it's functioning. We might have to purchase a new card reader. Sometimes it shows that it might be tampered with or something, and we need to replace the card readers. So these are just miscellaneous parts and pieces to this equipment that we may need to continue to operate, in addition to what we pay in maintenance and software coverage.
and Mr. Chairman, to the directors, is the parts not covered, the 10,000, is that for both garages?
Council Chair, to the councilman, yes.
All right. So actually, the total cost for the Willard Garage, Mr. Chairman, to the directors, would be $159,346.67, correct? If you took your total of your 3 years, and then you took 15,000 in parts not covered, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So it'd be
Approximately, yes.
Right, 159,346.67. And then if you took Gateway for only 1 year, because there's no sense us passing legislation for more than a year, if for nothing else, to push that sale through, right? It would be 80,672. Correct?
That sounds right.
Well, am I right? Okay. Give me 1 second. I guess there's a reason we have these, right? If you're going to do that. So you really wouldn't need anything more than $240,018.67. That would cover the Willard Garage and 1 year of the Gateway, knowing that we may not even need all the Gateway money, correct?
So through the chair to the councilman, that's correct. If I could ask, and we're amenable to that change, if we could just ask for the parts covered, if we could keep the entire 30, only because the inflation, and you don't know exactly what you're going to get, what's going to get hit, what you're going to lose. But in the other case, we are fine with those changes.
Councilman Casey, you want to make an amendment?
Yeah. Under section 2, after, in line 2, we're going to add the total amount not to exceed 240,000. We'll give you 245 because we'll give you the 10 for 1 year.
Okay.
$245,018.67. And that would be a period. And then the second line would read, any additional dollars that would go to Gateway after the 1 year period would need to be through legislative authority.
Okay.
All right, Councilman Casey has an amendment on the floor. Is there a second?
Chair, if I may, if it's, I know we're pushing a little bit, but can we ask for 249 even? Through the chair, to the councilman, to the committee.
You know what, Director, I'm tell you, so all of the data that you just gave me just a minute ago, we didn't have it last night. We didn't have it. We just had that, just got it today. So
Understood.
I really do not feel comfortable. So if you don't, if you want to come back with the real numbers, we'll hold it, and then we'll come back with the real numbers. Okay?
Are you okay with that?
For finance and then.
No, you're just talking about holding it for MSP for next time. Is that to the chair?
Okay.
You're asking to hold it at MSP?
Yeah, unless if you don't want to go by the numbers that we just kind of came out just off the bat, we can kind of hold it so we can get the numbers correct. So we
Okay.
will have to come back for this again. Okay.
Okay. Chair, we can live with the 245. We can live with your numbers.
Okay. So Councilman Casey has an amendment on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilwoman Mara seconds. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion on the amendment that Councilman Casey has on the floor? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, the amendment carries. All right, to the law director, do you have all of the amendment? Yes, thank you. Okay. All right, so is there any other questions on ordinance number 940, 2024? All right, director.
Okay. We're good.
All right, seeing no further questions, ordinance number 944 is approved as amended.
Thank you.
What numbers does he have?
940.
1148?
940. 2024.
That was 940.
Say 940?
Oh, sorry, that's not 940. It's 1122, sorry.
All right, ordinance number 1122, 2024. This is by council members Bishop and Griffin. This is a departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the purchase by one or more standard and requirement contracts for the purchase, lease, and lease with option to purchase of various on-road vehicles, apparatuses, and off-road equipment, cabs, bodies, and accessories, equipment, and other aftermarket items necessary to equip the vehicles authorized for the intended purposes, including vehicle rehabilitation, training, and inspection as needed for the various divisions of city government. Okay, Director?
So, Chair, I just want to make sure that did you all get the attachment that came with this summary?
Yes, I got
There's
that.
Equipment list with dollar amounts?
Yeah,
Just
I
wanna
got
make
that.
sure. Okay, we're on the same page. Thank you. So this passage of this legislation is necessary to ensure that the replacement of city vehicles and equipment that will have outlived their useful life and/or are too expensive to continue to maintain, as well as new pieces of equipment to keep our stock, rolling stock moving. I have with me here Commissioner Jeffrey Brown, to be able to answer any questions that you may have about this piece and the equipment on the list.
Okay, Director, we do this on a yearly basis, correct?
This is correct.
And what was the amount last year that you asked for?
It was like 16 million, something like that, but I don't have the exact. To the chair, I don't have that exact number, what the 2023 capital fund was, but I want to say it was somewhere in the area of like 17 million, but I can get that figure for you.
Okay, and Director, the funding source. I got a question about the funding source in the piece of legislation. So the funding source the questions I had about the funding source was in our executive summary. Hold on, let me pull it up here just a minute. So funding source says 01 and 001. What is that?
That would be general fund.
General fund? Okay. Have we always called a general fund by that number?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Those are the bean counter numbers for it, 01 and 001.
Okay. And I see you have a mobile tire shredder in here, and then I see you also have a mobile cart shredder. Are those the first time we are purchasing those pieces of equipment?
Yes, Chair, that is correct.
Okay.
So that tire shredder is really, we're spending upward near millions of dollars for just to recruit tires and have them carted off. There's really only one game in town. We've tried to search, and I've actually gone nationwide to see if anybody would be willing to do this. It's only one player that is licensed and able to do this. Our thought is we can probably do a lot better in-house. We did have a tire shredder years ago. So
Okay.
that's our idea, to really try to cut costs by bringing in this tire shredder.
Okay, so what do we do with our tires now?
Right now, there's a company, they haul them and they take them away and they dispose of them for us.
Okay. All right. I'm going to open it up for questions. Councilman Starr.
Thank you, through the chair. As far as this program operation, how long would it take, through the chair, for this to get up and running? As far as us coming up with our own program where we can be able to recycle the tires, I know we talked about that in the last time we all met. So through the chair, are we still working towards being able to do our own recycling of tires in-house so we could be able to keep some of that revenue?
Through the chair to the councilman, that is correct. Now, a matter of how long it will take for us to get this piece, and I'd have to kind of defer to the commissioner on that, but I would say from the time we get that piece, probably about time to train and to get all of our ducks in a row, it'd probably be about a maybe 6 or 7 month process.
Yep, and through the chair, and within this process of this new operation, would this create opportunity for additional jobs that will be needed in order to do this? Through the chair?
Through the chair to the councilman, I would think at first we would probably try to use in-house staff, just depending on the success and what it would take to get it done. Right now, I think in the past it was all done in-house. We didn't have to have additional staff per se, but times are different, things have changed. So I would say right now we probably try to do with internal staff at this point.
All right, and I yield, Chair.
All right, thank you, Councilman Starr. Councilwoman Marr.
Thank you. Good morning. I wanted to ask briefly about the EMS vehicles that are listed here. I see there are 2 SUVs. I assume those are the captain's vehicles. Through the chair.
Through the chair to the councilwoman, that is correct.
Thank you. And then there's 1 ambulance marked here. So just so I understand, is this a new purchase of an ambulance, or is this repair and maintenance of a prior ambulance?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, this is a new order.
Okay. And I know the questions of our ambulance fleet are really top of mind for EMS. So do we know which station that ambulance or sort of which vehicle will be retired by the purchase of this ambulance and where it will go to?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, I do not. That would be the decision of Commissioner Wheeler
Okay.
at the time the unit comes in. Typically, when we order a vehicle, we will look at the status of the fleet at that time, and he'll make a recommendation on the allocation of what station it goes to.
Got it. And I'm wondering if you could also provide an update. I know that we recently acquired another ambulance that was stationed, I believe, in the Old Brooklyn area that then was involved in a motor vehicle accident and had to go for repair and has been offline for a number of months. Is there a timeline for when that ambulance will be back online? Through the chair.
Through the chair to the councilwoman, there were actually 2 ambulances that were in severe motor vehicle accidents. I'm not sure which one you are referring to at that station. I certainly can get you that information. One of them, I believe we repaired in-house and is very close to going back in service. The other one was a much harder hit and would require going to the manufacturer to maintain the structural warranty. I will find out which one was at the Brooklyn station.
Yeah, I believe it was the one that had to go back to the manufacturer. And so if you could provide an update about both of those.
I can.
I would certainly appreciate it. You know, that's, it's something both our residents notice and of course our EMS paramedics and EMTs, you know, maintaining the safety and consistency of that fleet is really critical. So I would love an update about when both of those vehicles would be back online, as well as I just want to check through the chair. The city is self-insured, correct? So do we receive any sort of indemnification or subrogation for those repairs, or do we cover the costs ourselves?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, initially we cover the cost of the repair. Then through the law department, if there's any restitution to be recovered, you know, we will go after that, and we are on both of those situations. I don't know the status of those cases, though.
Yeah, I understand that might be a bit beyond, you know, the scope here at the table, but to the extent that Public Works could provide an update on both of those, I'd be very grateful. Thank you, Chair. Those complete my questions.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Brian Case.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the director, parking facilities, you got 2 cars at $30,000 apiece. These are all brand new. This is all brand new equipment, correct?
Through the chair to the councilman, these are all brand new units except for there's a line item under streets that says a rehabilitation dump truck, but everything else on here is a brand new purchase.
What kind of brand new car can we get for $30,000 today?
Through the chair to the councilman, we just recently purchased 2 Toyota Corollas that we put in service in the Division of Parking, and we would probably stay on that line of a small compact car that fits the needs of parking.
Okay. And they're only 30,000?
Absolutely.
Oh,
We're bargain hunters out here.
I guess. Let me know where you're going to get those at. A leaf machine? Is that the, for leaf pickup?
Through the chair to the councilman, yes, that's a trailer-mounted tow-behind leaf machine for the Division of Streets.
And that's the one that's got the big vacuum on it?
It is.
And then motor vehicle maintenance, why do you need 10 new trucks?
Through the chair to the councilman, that line item is, what I put that in there for is that will cover the entire city. So what we're doing there is we're purchasing 10 trucks, and because the timeline on getting them has been so sporadic lately, instead of dictating them to a specific division, as they come in, we will deploy them to the divisions that have the most need at that time.
So they're not specific to motor vehicle
They are
maintenance?
not motor vehicle pick. They will be somewhere throughout the city through the different divisions.
All right, and the riding mowers, we only need 2 of them. I know that there's always, when grass starts growing, there's always that conversation about equipment, and will the addition of these 2 new riding mowers, are we talking the big tractors, or are we talking like actual, like a riding mower that like I would have at my house?
Through the chair to the council, and these are for cemeteries,
Right.
And these are riding mowers with like a 54-inch deck on them.
And turn, zero turn.
And what's a sidewalk tracker?
Through the chair to the councilman, that sidewalk tractor is a combination unit that is a tractor that is equipped with either a snowplow, a leaf blower, a bucket. It's a multi-use unit that you can use year-round.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and then public safety is getting 20 new vehicles?
To the chair to the councilman, correct. 10 unmarked.
I mean,
and 10
Division of Police,
Yes,
right?
10 unmarked and 10 marked units.
Okay. And then EMS is only getting 3?
Through the chair to the councilman, they're getting 2 ambulances or 1 ambulances and 2 unmarked now. We just put, I want to say 16 brand-new ambulances in that division over the last 2 years.
All right,
We
thank
have
you.
two coming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Councilwoman Mar, you have a point?
Thank you. I actually just wanted to ask briefly about the leaf pickup vehicles, given what Councilman Casey asked. How many of those vacuum leaf pickup apparatuses do we have already as a city, through the chair?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, there are a total of 8 leaf pickup machines assigned to the Division of Streets.
Okay. And maybe Assistant Director, you could comment. In the past, in the last couple of years, we've seen different, sort of a different arrangement for pickup where the crews are almost like blowing the leaves into, I'm sorry.
Like in-loader or something like that.
Into
yeah.
backhoe, yeah. Could you describe a little bit about when we use the vacuum apparatus versus the others?
So through the chair to the council person, the preferred method is the vacs. In the case that those vacs go down, that would be our second. Or if we need to increase capacity, if all vacs are being used and we want to, really weather break or something like that, we really want to hit it hard, then we will go into, that was the method we'll use when we want to go beyond what we already have. So that's how that works.
Got it. And of the 8 that we have right now, how many are operational?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, all 8 of those have been prepped and ready for service.
Okay. And they're deployed right now, right? Because we've begun leaf pickup through the chair.
Through the chair to the council person, that's correct.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the point, Chair and Councilman.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman Mar. Councilman Joe Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning.
Good morning.
Looking here, I guess the first question I would have, Mr. Chairman, to the Commissioner, this is the estimated vehicle use for every single department in the city of Cleveland for next year's annual year. Is that correct? Or is that for this year?
Through the chair to the councilman, with the exception of public utilities.
With the exception of public
That's
utilities?
a separate, and airport, that's a
So,
separate legislation.
so when you, if I can, Mr. Chairman, to the Commissioner, when you're putting together this list here, is this list collected from the various different commissioners and directors from those departments saying, hey, this is what we need, and you kind of assemble the list? How is it brought together?
Through the chair to the councilman, typically each year I meet with or have correspondence back and forth with the commissioners of every division in the city, and we talk about their priorities of equipment, what my list is versus their list, and any new programs they may be starting. In that, this is how that list is
Put
comes
together.
about. Yes.
Okay. And so for each year, so this is annually, how much do we spend on equipment and purchasing new vehicles?
Through the chair to the councilman, it varies, but for the last several years, it's ranged between 16 and 18 million.
16 to 18 million each year.
Yes, sir.
I see. And, Mr. Chairman, no further questions.
All right, thank you, Councilman Jones. Director, I am getting, I just got a message that the funding source, we talked about the funding source for is 01 and 001. So I'm getting I just got a text that the funding source should be 2723 and 2724.
I'm sorry. One more time, was that? What were the, what did you say they were, the funding sources?
It should be 2723 and 2724.
I'm not quite sure what they mean by that.
You're not quite sure?
Yeah, I can show you when we do there are multiple sources here, most of them capital. You'll see, you can take a look here when we did the legislation. Most
Okay.
of them are capital, and you may see there the 70, which is motor vehicle maintenance.
Okay.
But those are the sources that we use for this. This is typically a capital piece, so.
Okay. All right, so if you can kind of give me clarification on that, if you can double check on that.
Sure.
And so if I don't get that through finance, then we'll hold it up on finance, but we'll pass
get
it
it to
here.
you. We'll get it to
Okay.
you. You just want these sources here? We can just forward you these sources?
Yeah,
Okay.
I just want clarification about if these funding sources are proper.
Absolutely. We'll
Correct.
do. We'll do.
All right, is any other questions on ordinance number 1122, 2024? Seeing no further questions, ordinance number 1122, 2024 is approved.
Thank you.
All right, you got one more piece, Director, right? You got 586?
Is that?
It's a joint piece. It's a
okay.
joint department with DPU and Public Works.
I think is that the one that went through, I think it went through Public Utilities, and now it's coming through this piece. I was not prepared to speak to that, but I can.
Yes, it went through Public Utilities already.
Okay. Jeff, you may have to stay for this one, too.
Ordinance number 586, 2024 by council members Casey, Bishop, and Griffin. This is a departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the procurement by one or more requirements contracts for the rental of various types of heavy-duty equipment for the divisions of water, Cleveland Public Power, and Water Pollution Control, and the Department of Public Utilities, and for the Department of Public Works for a period of 2 years. Okay. All right, Director, are you familiar with this?
I am not. I think Commissioner Brown has some familiarity with it, but I do know they did go through the Public Utilities Committee.
Right.
So I'll let.
To the chair, I believe this is for mostly the Division of Water when they have large pipe repair. This is for like renting excavation equipment, larger dump
Right.
trucks, tractor trailer dump trucks.
Right.
That's for the lease.
Right. So so I have a breakdown. Let me pull this up. And I was looking at this last night also. There is a breakdown. Division of Water is year one, 80,000. Year two, 80,000. Water Pollution Control, 25,000 each year. Cleveland Public Power, 35,000 each year, and Department of Public Works, 40,000 for year one and year two, which is total 80,000. So the total would be 360,000. Okay.
Yes, those numbers sound correct. I'm not real familiar with this because this was a public utilities project, but yeah, Public Works involvement is that when the Division of Streets is doing a project in conjunction with public utilities, so I believe that's why they're listed on that legislation.
So for the most part, this is really their piece, and we just kind of piggyback on it, but we
Okay.
don't really have any say-so on how, the dollar amounts of those things. What we could do if you wanted to hold it, and we can see if the folks from Public Utilities.
This is for heavy equipment wear. So we understand if you need some equipment and you have to do a job, you have to be able to rent equipment. All right. Is there any questions on ordinance number 586? Yeah, we heard this. All right. No questions on ordinance 586. Seeing no further questions, ordinance number 586 is approved.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Director. That's it for you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. All right, MoCap. Good morning, Director. All right. All right, Director, we got 4 pieces for you. Ordinance number 1146, 2024 by council members Conwell, Bishop, and Griffin. This is departmental request. The emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to enter into one or more agreements with the City of East Cleveland, authorizing the City of East Cleveland to construct improvements on Woodlawn Avenue as Phase 1, of the Circle East Transformational Project located in the cities of East Cleveland, and to cause payment of Cleveland's share. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, so this is a transformational project that City of Cleveland was.
Hold on, Director.
Okay.
I have to read this into the record. This is ordinance number 1146, 2024, as amended. Let me read the amendment. There is no legal objection to the legislation if amended as follows. Number 1, in section 2, line 4, strike woodland and insert woodlawn. Okay? All right, go ahead, Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was just to fix a typo, so thank you for that. This is a little nook of Ward 6 that's sort of it's next to the Lakeview Cemetery and off of Euclid Avenue, and there's a project to rebuild this roadways in this area. Portions are in the city of Cleveland, portions are in the city of East Cleveland. And so this is a multi-year project. $375,000 is the city's share of the city of Cleveland's share of phase 1. And that would be for construction that would begin in 2025. This is in Ward 6, and we do have Councilman Griffin's support.
So I did have a question on, is that Ward 6 for sure?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I just didn't know the council president went all the way to East Cleveland. I wasn't sure about that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it's just an odd boundary of the city.
Okay.
And it's kind of isolated, if you will, because of the cemetery. So
Okay.
it appears as if it's East Cleveland, but it's in the city of Cleveland.
City of
limits.
Cleveland. Okay, is there any questions on ordinance number 1146? Any questions on 1146? Okay. All right, hold on, before you do that, let me go to Councilman Brian Casey.
Mr. Chairman, to the director, who's doing the majority of this work? Is it East Cleveland?
Through the chairman of the councilman, yes, East Cleveland is doing the work. It's in conjunction with the county land bank, and they have many partners that are ensuring that the work will be done properly. But it is somewhat unusual for the city of Cleveland to do a project of this scale nowadays, but they do have a lot of support and backers for this project.
So, Mr. Chairman, to the director, is it the city of East Cleveland, or is it the county with the land bank and all that?
Well, through the chairman of the councilman, the city of East Cleveland will be running the construction project.
And then, Mr. Chairman, to the director, is this reimbursable dollars?
Through the
So
chairman of the councilman, yes.
We won't pay them until the work is done, correct?
Or as the work is being
Or
done.
is it being done?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Councilman Casey. Councilman Richard Starr?
Yes, I wanted to make an amendment regarding this ordinance number 1146,
Okay.
where it says suggested amount under, it should say executive summary tells us they only need, no, let's amend in a total not to exceed 375,000. We should put perhaps insert at the end of section 3, after the sale of the future bonds, if issued for this purpose before, parentheses, RQS 0103, comma, RLA 2024-102.
Okay, so you're saying that, what will we insert, Councilman?
So under section 3,
Okay,
whereas it says, where you see on 1146-2024, where it says executive summary, right there under that section part, we should insert at the end of section 3, after the sale of future bonds, if issued for this purpose, before, we should add in the RQS 0103 RLA-2024-102, and we want to make sure not to exceed the $375,000.
okay, all right. All right, Councilman Starr has a motion on the floor to insert not to exceed $375,000.
And Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Joe, second that. Is there any discussion on the amendment?
Can I just ask a question?
Okay, go ahead, Director.
Excuse me, just a quick question. So the RQS RLA is in here, it's just to add the not to exceed?
Yes, not to
Got it.
exceed.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, Director, is there any other questions?
No, sir.
All right, so is there any discussion on Councilman Starr's amendment? Okay, those in favor of the amendment say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, the amendment carries. All right, is there any other questions on ordinance 1146, 2024? Seeing no further questions, ordinance number 1146, 2024 is approved. Thank you, and please sign. As amended, I'm sorry. All right, ordinance number 1048, 2024. By Council Members Slife, Bishop, Harrison, and Griffin. This is a departmental request. It's an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to enter into one or more agreements with the Board of Park Commissioners of the Cleveland Metropolitan Park District regarding a city contribution of funding to implement the Old Lorraine Connector Trail and authorizing the Director to accept the donation of a temporary easement from the Metro Parks for a period of 10 years located within the project area for the purpose of implementing the project. Okay, Director.
Mr. Chairman, so I'm going to hand this over to Commissioner DeGennaro, but I just wanted to frame it to say that this is a true collaboration project. County Councilman Dale Miller is funding with $750,000. The city's putting in $750,000. The Metro Parks are managing the project, and the Cleveland Clinic has donated land for the project. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to the Commissioner.
Thank you, Director. Good morning, Commissioner Suzanne DeGennaro, Division of Real Estate. And I have with me Andrew Stalkey, who is project developer with Cleveland Metro Parks at the end of the table there, and also Phil Kidd, who is our Trails Program Manager in MOCAP. As was mentioned, the ordinance would authorize the Director of Capital Projects to accept a 10-year easement from Cleveland Metro Parks and contribute funds for the construction of the Old Lorraine Connector Trail. This is a third of a mile multi-use trail from River Edge Road to Little Met Golf Drive, which will connect Cleveland Clinic Fairview Hospital and the Cam's Corners neighborhood to the Cleveland Metro Parks Rocky River Reservation and the Emerald Necklace Trail system. The trail will establish a safe connection for the residents of Cam's to the reservation by traversing the area's steep topography to create a park connection for the residents and employees of Fairview Hospital. Cleveland Metro Parks will donate a 2.58-acre easement, 10-year easement over Cleveland Metro Parks property, which is comprised of 2 PPNs, 026-04004 and 026-34001 for the trail and related improvements, and the city will contribute funds, as the Director mentioned, for construction, along with project partners, Cleveland Metro Parks, Cuyahoga County, and Cleveland Clinic. And then Cleveland Clinic will maintain Cleveland Metro Parks will maintain the trail and the improvements post-construction. This is in Ward 17. Councilman Charles Slife is in support. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I did hear from Councilman Slife, and he do approve of this. Is there any questions on ordinance number 1048? Councilman Brian Cage.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to probably our Metro Parks guy, this is Old Lorraine Road going down from Fairview Hospital down to the golf course right there. That's a very narrow road, right? And it's very steep. Is there going to be are they widening it somehow? I mean, how is the trail going to go? Because that's 2 cars barely fit by there, and I don't know if anybody ever comes up it, right, on bike or walking it. So how I think this is great, but how is this going to work?
So thank you for the question. So We are following city right-of-way, which is just south of Old Lorraine Road. So we're not impacting the pavement itself. We're not taking pavement away. We are kind of going into the city right-of-way and Cleveland Metro Parks property. And then once we get up the hill, it gets very narrow. We have Cleveland Clinic structures. At that point, we dip south behind the Cleveland Clinic garage, away from the road, and then we come back up at River Edge Road.
So is this a new, Mr. Chairman, to our presenter, is this going to be a new path that's going to go down? Is this a new connector?
Correct.
And is there enough room? Because that's an unusual situation with the way the hospital is right there. And then what's left on the south side of the street, right? So it won't be very wide. I mean, there's just not enough room there. But this is something new that's going to go on, that's going to be built on the south side of Old Lorraine Road, connecting the top right there by the hospital all the way down to the Metro Park back there?
Correct, yeah. And we're ensuring it's a 10-foot wide trail, keeping to our standards. We just had to get a little creative where we found that 10 feet, as well as the required shy distance, so that there's some space between the trail and the roadway.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. Congratulations. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Casey. Councilman Joe Jones.
Question, Mr. Chairman, to the director. Can you give us the breakdown of how did 2 million came up? Who's given what in this project?
Through the chairman of the councilman, so is the question who's doing what in this project with the partners?
I see that the city is committed to $750,000 here.
Correct.
What's the total project cost?
Through the chairman of the councilman, so our contribution is the $750,000. Councilman Dale Miller put in $750,000 of ARPA dollars, and that was county ARPA dollars that he put into the project. Suzanne, do you know about the other?
Through the chair to the councilman, and Phil can maybe confirm this, I believe the other $500,000 is coming from Cleveland Clinic.
Cleveland Clinic?
Yes.
And, Mr. Chairman, I was, listening to my colleague, Casey, kind of like try to figure out, where this project is going to be put into play. You give a description. Do you have any any maps that could show us what you're talking about here?
Through the chair to Councilman Jones, there should be a map in your packet, but I brought.
Yeah, I didn't see it on the screen, so I must have missed it somehow. Thank you.
You can see in red there, that's the trail as it traverses Cleveland Metro Parks property. It kind of comes off River Edge Road and goes across Fairview to Cleveland Clinic's property and then connects to those two parcels I mentioned that are owned by Cleveland Metro Parks, and
see.
heads up north to the Old Lorraine Road and then down to Little Met
Right.
Golf Drive.
This here is made, this trail, is it made out of concrete or is it asphalt?
Through the chair, I'll defer to Mr. Stuckey.
Thank you. Through the chair, the councilperson, it is asphalt.
And then what else is this pretty much it? You're just going to do the trail? You're going to do other things, other improvements here?
It is primarily the trail. Down at the bottom of the hill, we'll be creating a more formal crossing where the trail goes across the golf course entrance. And then up at the top of the hill, there will be a very small trailhead, some signage to tell people that the trail is there. You can enter it there. And then within the Cleveland Clinic garage, we will put some simple striping to direct employees and guests of the hospital how to get to the trail through the garage.
And I presume the trail is going to be how big?
It's 10 foot wide, about a third of a mile long. Yeah.
No further questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Jones. All right, Director, I have a couple questions as far as in Section 6. It says the cost of the city's contribution shall not exceed $750,000 and shall be paid from Fund Number 20 SF 568 and 20 SF 702 from the funds or funds to which are credited the proceeds from the sale of future bonds if issued for this purpose and from any funds approved by the Director of Finance. Could you explain where this is coming from? Is it coming from future bond sales, and what year is that coming from?
Mr. Chairman, this is already fully funded. I don't have with me here. I probably have it in my operational hearing stuff, but this is already fully funded. This project is ready to go into construction. They actually wanted to go into construction, November-ish, but now they're looking at springtime for construction. So the funding, for my recollection, was shown when we came through the operational hearings. This was one of the important projects for Councilman's life, or the CIP hearings in the summertime. And I believe that there were unspent bond proceeds from other trail projects that we allocated to this project so that it could move forward.
Okay, you don't know what year that was from? Those.
Not right at the top of my head.
Okay. Okay. Can you provide that information before we hit the finance?
Sure.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and I might be able to provide it when I have a break to look through my notes.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go to Councilman McCormick.
Thank you, Chair. And I don't sit on this committee, so I appreciate you letting me a moment to speak. So as was just noted by the director, I just wanted to note, Chairman, this is the Charles Slife Honorary Trail, correct?
Yeah.
So he's been working on this for years to make this connection.
Years
so,
and years.
I know as has this team, but Chairman, I just wanted to acknowledge that because he's not here today.
Right.
But I remember him talking to me about this connection years and years and years ago. So I just want to give Councilman Slife a shout out here because this has been one of his babies, in addition to that beautiful park they just built over there in 17. So that I know that he brought forward and has been advocating for. So Chair, I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Yes, Councilman McCormick, I did receive a text last night from Councilman Slife. He just like you said, this is his thing. So, all right, is any other questions on 1048, 2024? Seeing no further questions, ordinance number 1048, 2024 is approved. All right. Our next piece, ordinance number 1166, 2024, by council members McCormick, Bishop, and Hairston. This is a departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to issue a permit to 1865 West 22nd Street, LLC, to encroach into the public right-of-way of West 22nd Street by installing, using, and maintaining one or more electrical power lines and conduits. All right, Director.
Mr. Chairman, there's an apartment rehabilitation project that's happening at 1865 West 22nd Street in Ward 3. This project has been, thoughtfully designed and underway for the better part of a year now. This particular encroachment permit is to underground private utilities under West 22nd Street. And so we're seeking consent to move forward with the encroachment permit.
Okay, Director, what is a private utility? What can you explain that?
Mr. Chairman, that would be the electric that's needed by to power this apartment building.
Okay, and who provides that power?
To the chair, CPP's providing the power coming off their pole right at Bridge in West 22nd Street.
Okay, so when you say private utility, you're referring to, who are you referring to?
To the chair, what all that means is that if this duct bank carried power from multiple locations, they wouldn't need an encroachment. It would just normally it'd be like CPP putting lines across to these various businesses. Since this duct bank is only going to the apartment building, it's considered a private utility, and hence they need an encroachment. Something
Okay.
like what Cleveland Foundation did when they put their duct banks in. They all needed encroachments because it only serves them.
Okay. All right, is there any questions on ordinance number 1166, 2024?
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Joe Jones.
I couldn't hear the Mr. Chairman, the director on this one here. You're saying that you will no longer be using overhead lines. You're pulling the power down into the ground. Is that correct?
To the chair, to the councilman, that's correct. The building is paying for the duct bank to go in, and it's only for them. It's only for them. So that's why it's a private utility. They're paying for the duct bank. CPP's providing the power.
I see. No questions, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Is there any more questions on ordinance number 1166, 2024? Seeing no further questions, ordinance number 1166, 2024 is approved. All right, Director, last but not least, resolution number 1176, 2024 by Council Members Polensek, Bishop, and Hairston by departmental request, an emergency resolution declaring the intent to vacate a portion of East 166th Street. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, so this is an interesting road. 166th Street goes between St. Clair Avenue and Wayside Road, and the ward boundaries go right down the center line. So one side of it is Councilman Plensek's ward, one side of it is Councilman Hairston's ward. There's an industrial building that runs most of the length of this roadway. Someone has purchased it called Varga Victor Metals. In order to access the building properly, they want to improve how the loading docks sort of go through the roadway into the building. And that type of improvement is something that we wouldn't do if it was a dedicated roadway. I will say that this roadway is also in very poor condition, so it helps the city to vacate it as well, because we're not responsible for maintaining a roadway that really serves what used to be a vacant building, and now someone's investing in it for their industry. So we do have support of both council members. Councilman Polensek in particular has been very adamant to move this forward, so we're happy to be able to start the vacation process here today. Reminder, this is the first of 3 steps of a vacation process, so but we're looking for passage so that we can go through that process.
Okay. All right, is there any questions on resolution number 1176, 2024? All right, seeing no further questions, resolution number 1176, 2024 is approved. All right, that is the end of the legislative period. Okay.
Come on up.
All right.
I'm going to have my staff up here with me.
Okay.
I'm okay. I'll be better after this. Yes, sir. Everyone's scared of you guys. Come on, it's not so bad. Not so bad.
All right, Director, you want to start our operational review period. Tell us how the department is running. You can talk about your, how's things going and where we going from here and moving forward.
Yes, sir. Thanks, and thanks for having us today. To my left, I'm going to introduce who's with me today. And hopefully you've all worked with everyone here and know them. But for those that are watching, to my left is Assistant Director Keisha Chambers. To my right is Manager Rick Swatowski for Engineering and Construction. To his right, Commissioner DeGennaro for the Division of Real Estate. And to her right is Mark Julik, the Manager of Architecture and Site Development. I do have a PowerPoint that we're going to go through. If there are questions along the way, feel free to interrupt. It's not a problem at all. And our agenda here is that we'll go through a little bit of an overview of what our mission is, go through a SWOT analysis, talk about some of our goals and the current initiatives that we have in place to meet those goals. We'll talk about some of our measures of success. I know there's been a lot of discussion with council about spending down bonds, so we'll talk about that. And as a reminder, the majority of our budget is through bond proceeds. We have a small operating budget, but most of our work comes through bond proceeds. And then we'll go through some statistics on accomplishments, and then an update on the Back to Basics projects that were funded with ARPA dollars. So I'm going to read this first statement. Don't worry, I'm not going to read everything in this PowerPoint. But our mission statement is to provide for the planning, design, construction, and preservation of the City of Cleveland's facilities and infrastructure through collaborative and comprehensive planning, leadership and management, excellence in sustainable design and technical expertise, and quality construction based upon integrity and professionalism. I'm also going to read this first objective, which is to effectively deliver capital projects and improve customer service by developing streamlined, standardized procedures, reporting and tracking systems, and increasing the use of technology through project life cycles. And all of this, of course, is to improve the economic, physical, and social well-being of our citizens. So, I hope that, as I mentioned, folks are, accustomed to working with our different divisions. Engineering and construction, which Rick leads up, manages the city's right-of-way. And there's more details in here that folks can review. Architecture and site development is our in-house architecture, landscape architecture, and urban design arm of the city. And then real estate, Division of Real Estate manages transactions and real estate functions for various city departments. So I'm going to get into the SWOT analysis. We're not perfect. We do feel that we have some self-awareness of what our shortcomings are, and we're constantly working to try to address both change that we can't control and things that we can control. So if you look at our strengths, one is organizational structures and skilled staff. We do truly have a very skilled and dedicated staff. We have a lot of folks that are either engineers or architects or attorneys or other professions in our department, and we certainly rely on them and their dedication and skill set. Another strength is our efficiency metrics. We have a project controls manager who keeps us on track. And we also have ongoing assessments that help us inform us for what future projects should be coming our way. Currently, Division of Architecture is doing an assessment of all of our salt domes and also our public works garage facility roofs. And so that should inform future capital improvement plan requests to see what the needed improvements are. On a yearly basis, we go to all of every 2 years, we go out to all of our parks and we do an assessment of the condition of the parks. One of our staff members in the in the site development section is a certified playground inspector, and that's something that we use to make sure that while everything might not be in perfect condition, we make sure that everything is assessed according to the to standards for playgrounds to keep kids safe. So also strength, new federal grants. I need to highlight. I can't say enough good things about my staff for going after and actually receiving a lot of these federal grants. So in 2023, and I'll be brief about this, for park and recreation grants, in 2023 we received $201,500, and in 2024 for park and recreation we received over $1 million in park and rec grants. And then federal grants, we've received over $80 million of federal grants. So some of that includes North Coast Connector, which was, about 80 million right there, 60, and then we got in the state. Oh, okay. Yep. So we got 60 from the feds and 20 from the state for North Coast Connector. East 66th Street got about $500,000 from NOACA, and then we also got a federal appropriation for $50,000 to look at the Carter Road bulkheading. And then DOPWIC and NOACA grants. 2023, we had $10 million for different roadway projects, and 2024, we had almost $30 million in grants for roadway projects. So we go after as much as we can. We're not always successful. It takes a lot of work to put these applications in. Sometimes we have to hire consultants to do the detailed analysis that goes with the applications, but all of you have heard me at the table before to say that we can't do the work we do without additional money coming in. So we go after everything that we think is feasible. So then the final strength is internal responsiveness. We consider our relationship with City Council to be responsive, with other parts of City Hall to be responsive. We know that we need to do better work with being responsive to residents. That is something that we continue to strive for. But I think over the last couple of years, we've made leaps and bounds progress with both City Council and City Hall responsiveness. So some of our weaknesses, there's still contract language that we need to update in our bid documents. We continue to make improvements, but there's still work yet to go. We also, a weakness would be our competitiveness with regard to advancement of staff and salaries. It's definitely challenging to pull in the candidates that we want, but we work hard to entice them because of the good work we do. And there's been several advancements for promotions since 2022. I think we've probably had, four or five, which is, something that just didn't happen in the past. Of course, they have to be qualified, but everyone's given the opportunity. And then one of our weaknesses is really celebrating our wins. We don't have a good process to get information out when we put in a new playground or when we finish a roadway or when we get a big grant. It's really not put out in the public, so we need to do better with that, and we've recognized that. And then I have a slide later on about the bond spend down, which we'll get into a little bit and what our strategies are to assist with that. So opportunities, level of service improvements. Some of the things we're working on is, which you'll see in a later slide, are responsiveness to residents and specifically in the sidewalk program. We're also continuing to work on streamlining our invoice process to make sure that big or small contractors receive payments quicker. And then we're also working on a technique, which you'll see in a later slide, to really get some of our park and rec projects underway quicker. So those are a few of the opportunities that we have. For small contractor access, we did start a project or a new program for the 50/50 sidewalk program where we're using small contractors. We have 3 MBE companies that were given small contracts to work throughout the city on the sidewalk program. 2 are doing really well. 1 did not do so well, but we continue to work with the contractors that are, doing work, and we'll look at the program next year to see how we can improve both with qualifications before we accept them, but also to try to grow some of these small businesses so that they can bite off bigger contracts once they get the proper equipment and staffing and all that kind of good stuff. Entry-level positions, it's challenging to bring in an engineer with 5 years of experience at the salaries we offer, so we're working with civil service to create a stepped program so that you can bring somebody in when they have their degree, but they haven't gotten their PE yet, and then again, once they have their PE, but they don't have 3 to 5 years of experience, so we're trying to break that down.
Now, what's PE?
It's what's PE stand for?
Professional engineer.
Professional engineer. Sorry.
Okay. It's like a certification in engineering?
That's the license.
Exactly.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And the same is true for architects, where if you get your schooling done, you need to work a certain number of years before you can even take the test to become a professional engineer. So there's the opportunity in that period not only to bring in some younger folks, but get them excited about working at the City of Cleveland, and hopefully once they pass their engineering exam, then they would stay with the city.
It looks like you haven't set up any smart home accessories.
Councilman. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the next one is use of technology, so thank you. So we, MoCap's always been heavy in the use of technology. We use Smartsheet as our project tracker, and we continue to do more things with Smartsheet, as well as Pegasus is what our inspectors use out in the field. They all have a tablet. They can take their notes, do project quantities, take photographs, and actually do their work as they see it. Some prefer to come back to a desk and input the information, but the goal is really to get everybody to do the work when they're out in the field, which really helps with standardizing reporting and assists with being more nimble out in the field. So some of our threats that I'll go through here are the change of administration, and I'll say both federally, we're concerned about what happens to these grant sources, what happens to the awards that we may have gotten but don't have a check in hand yet. So we're concerned about that. And then, of course, next year here at City Hall, everyone's up for election, right? So that could change council members, mayors, we just don't know. So that's a threat that's on the horizon. Funding competition is nothing new. There's lots of cities, lots of competition for the federal grants that we go after, whether it's locally or nationwide. Bond sale delay, when we receive bond proceeds late in the year, which we received just a few weeks ago, it really doesn't give us a chance to spend those bonds until next year. We could start some things, some work can happen in the wintertime, but most of our construction projects are, fair weather types of projects. And then also just the job market. There's a lot of folks that are very used to work from home, and a lot of flexibility that we just don't have, or salaries that are just not what we can offer. So we always emphasize, just so everyone's clear, we always emphasize the rewarding nature of this work, and we also emphasize the fact that they can really jump in and dig into a project instead of being like one piece of a many-layered piece of baklava. They just do one little slice of that project. So just self-awareness wise, what I hear from council too is that we need to move faster. I hear from council that we need to think ahead about maintenance of what we're building. Don't just build it. Think about how Public Works is going to maintain it, or now Parks and Rec is going to maintain it after it's built. And then also just responding better to residents. So here are some of our goals. Knowing all that, here's some of our goals. First is to strengthen cross-departmental collaboration. Let me just flip here. And so I mentioned before that this is something that we have as a strength, but we want to strengthen it even more. We want to advance program management measures, and that means really, in our situation, keeping track of when the bond proceeds come in, keeping track of the projects, and making sure that we expend them. 85% of the bond spend down within 3 years of receipt. There's a couple things we've been doing, just as an aside, is splitting the design funding from the construction funding. That means that you don't have all of the project funding at one time, so that the money for construction is just sitting there while we're designing a project. Now we split the design in the construction as of the last 3 or so years. Another one is to innovate the sidewalk program, exploring methods to improve processes to execute the sidewalk repairs. Another is to transform public engagement. We have a public engagement consultant on board that's going to work with us over the next 2 years to both standardize how we engage with the public through public meetings, but also how do we communicate through yard signs, for instance? How do we tell our story better through information that we provide to communications or we put on our own website? And then also improve asset management, which is something that we collaborate on with various departments around the city. So how do we do that? This next slide are some of the programs that we're working on to address those goals. Sidewalk program update, I mentioned. I've been focused last year and this year on really getting caught up. So now we're also starting to look at how do we take the existing programs, change them, keep some, change some. What is the structure that we use for the sidewalk repair process? Park and recreation requirements contract. So for the first time, we're looking to do something similar to what engineering and construction has for the roadways, which is to have a requirements contract set up so that if we have a rec need, if council members have a rec need, we have a contractor on board that we can supplement that contract with funding as it arrives to get work started quicker. So if there's pickleball striping, if there's fencing that needs replaced, if there's a new sign at a rec center or a park due to a park renaming, we can get into that a lot quicker. So public engagement plan, I mentioned that we have a contractor on board. The permit process improvements is something that's a citywide initiative with building and housing, engineering and construction, and IT to really get Acela more built out and used to streamline the permit process for the city of Cleveland. We also have a local partner agency designation goal, which would allow us to run our own construction projects when there's federal funding, so that instead of ODOT running our projects, we have many steps and requirements that we have to meet, but we are working through those. And then we have a workflow documentation and improvements initiative, which is really to look at how can we improve how we offer our services. And then we have our 5-year capital plan, which as over the last couple years, I've been more active in, so I'm able to focus on that and try to make some improvements, both with how we intake requests from administration and city council and how we execute on those and make sure the bonds get sold a little earlier and make sure that we can move on our projects a little quicker.
Okay, Director.
Yes.
And we pause there. Is there any questions on anything that in the presentation thus far? Yeah, we're gonna pause right here. He's have covered a lot of things, so we want to pause right here and kind of take a couple of questions. Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, because the director is going over quite a bit of information here, so it's just so much. So first, let me say this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to the director. One of the things that has been a concern for me is the efficiency, and I've, had conversations privately about this, is our signage when we're doing projects in the city. The citizens won't know if the council person and the mayor has got these projects going if we don't have the proper signage in place. And it has to be big enough and done in such a way where they notice that there is a sign. The signs that you guys are putting down here on these poles and that kind of carrying on, they're blowing off in the wind, they're falling apart, or if you even notice them. And I don't know how we came up with just putting, it would have seemed to be more efficient to me, Mr. Chairman. You got one sign for resurfacing and you can't really see it, and then you get another sign that says Joe Biden, you can see it. And it just, to me, you should have had one big sign, had it all in that one hit. I think it would have been more efficient. We've had this conversation about signage. And here's how bad it is, Mr. Chairman. The city started working on one of the projects in my neighborhood in the parks, in one of our parks. And the city, we had 2 or 3 citizens thought that we were building apartments in the park because they saw the work, but there was no signage there to tell the citizens what the city was actually doing in the park. So they went to church, and they said the councilman is building apartment units, and that had a stir. And so then I got word about that, and I'd been already previously talking about if we're doing work in the city of Cleveland, taxpayers need to see what we're doing as elected officials. And that's probably one of the baddest reasons why we got so defeated so overwhelmingly in this last election on a national level. We do a lot of great work for our people in our communities, yet we don't have the signage telling them this is what we're doing. And that makes me mad, and we should be better at that. We were better at that one day in time when Mike White was the mayor of the city of Cleveland. We had big signs up on every single street talking about resurfacing and whatever other projects we're doing in the city of Cleveland. But when I come back to the city of Cleveland, it's just like no signs exist. And so my suggestion, Mr. Chairman, let's get that done first. Let's make sure that our citizens are fully aware and astute what improvements are happening in their neighborhoods and their communities, so the people like us who are fighting every day to make sure that we're bringing services into our communities, that the citizens know it's us doing the work. Now, I didn't want to have to come on this microphone and tell you that, and I've been trying to tell you all along behind the scenes. Now, the second piece here that's important to me, Mr. Chairman, and I won't belabor all my points, is talking about our efficiency. Now, I'm going to go back to this because I haven't heard anything, so maybe the director or commissioner can give me an update on this. This issue is as important as anything else. We've had a number of streets that have been resurfaced, roadworks that have been redone, and when I've had an opportunity to ask the question, how is it that this looks this way, or is this the proper way, because it looks unprofessional, it looks sloppy, some of the projects that I've been on and taken a look at certain things. And then I asked the question, well, where's the inspector at? Where is the city inspectors that's going to make sure that all this money that we're sitting here at this table spending, and let me just make sure that I'm clear where you're clear and we all understand this. This is what touches the people. This is what they're able to feel, see, and touch. So if you go over into their communities and you just have a rough job and it looks bad, they're gonna call me. I'm not sure about my colleagues, but they give me a call. They say, how is it that these people are disrespecting us as a people in our community? Why is it that, we're hitting and falling into bumps and roads and don't even have the proper signage available to let a person know they're about to hit a big bump or they're about to drop in a dip? No signage, no warning, no anything. And it's like we've gotten really sloppy. And so what I would say to you, Mr. Chairman, to the director, to show the point that I'm talking about, we had some work done in my neighbor's, right in front of my neighbor's property. No one put anything in place to warn the people who have cars coming down the street that they're going to have that drop. And then I started complaining about it. And then the water department came out and did something about it. But now they haven't completely repaired it, and every night people are running across that piece, and it's going to cause an accident. It's right next door to my property. I'll give you the address later. So my question is, in terms of entry-level positions and opportunities, what have we done to improve our inspectors that go out and inspect the work that contractors do in our city, in terms of following our rules and regulations that we have?
So, through the chairman of the councilman, so I think you're speaking about utility cuts, but I'm not exactly sure if that's the drop that you're talking about.
No, that's an example, Mr. Chairman, of a bigger, wider problem.
Okay.
It's just that right now, if we're going to serve our citizens, we need to serve them. Because these are the projects that hit them. Park improvements, recreational improvements, streets are our biggest thing. And so when we're doing that work, having the proper signage there, having the proper oversight in terms of inspectors on those site locations, making sure that those contractors are in compliance to our rules. And when they're not in compliance to our rules, then there's a problem. And we have a street that I share with my council colleague who's the chairman of this committee, East 131st Street, and I still don't know what's going on with it. And nobody's called me and told me about it. And it's like you're driving smooth, and I don't see this nowhere else in the city but on the east side. You're driving somewhere smooth, and boom, you going into a third world country out of nowhere, or hydroplaning off the road because there's a big drop. It looks smooth. It seems like it's smooth. It seems like it's a straight street, but it's an illusion. And that's because you had a bad contractor that no one seemed to want to do anything about, that seemed to get all the work in the city of Cleveland, well connected, but yet is doing work that is horrible and is not delivering the kind of services we need to do.
Through the chairman of the councilman, first of all, we certainly don't play favorites with contractors.
So what's happened with East 131st Street, Mr. Chairman?
Through the
Where
chairman
is
of
that
the
at?
councilman, East 131st Street is.
Councilman, please, if you can let the director finish his line of thought.
I just don't want to have no double talk, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
I just
but-
want to know about a
Councilman,
issue that, Mr. Chairman, I brought to the
Councilman,
attention.
so listen, Councilman, if we,
Point well
we're,
taken,
we're
Mr.
gonna,
Chairman.
yeah, we're going to listen to what you have to say. When the director responds to your question, please let him finish. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman of the councilman, so East 131st Street is still with our law department to try to figure out how we can get the contractor to make the repairs that we know needs to happen on 131st Street. We've had a rideability survey, which many council members attended to verify that what didn't meet our standards. There's many castings that haven't been adjusted properly. And so through our law department, we continue to be in discussions with the contractor. And you know, to be honest, one of the reasons why is because they haven't been offering us a resolution that's going to get the road fixed. Part of our, you know, dilemma is, do you take something quick and easy up front that puts the financial burden on the city, or do you keep pushing to get the contractor to fix it properly? And so that's what we've been doing, is pushing to get it fixed properly, but unfortunately, you know, it takes time, but we are working on it. I wish that was not a street that was still being negotiated, but unfortunately it is, but we're not letting go until it gets fixed.
But the problem, Mr. Chairman, that we have here is, and that's what the question is how do we prevent that from happening in the future, right? So if part of the issue is we just did not have the men and women on the job, or maybe they were on the job, who knows where they were at. Well, wherever they were at, whoever it was, there should have been some kind of reprimand here, that you would have a $5 million project. And I know, Mr. Chairman, to the director, that you were not the person over that project and didn't head up any of that, right? So I get that. So don't think that what I'm saying to you is intended directly for you. It's intended here to make sure that as we move forward as a city, we have the proper inspectors in place. Have we increased the proper inspection process so this kind of situation doesn't happen again? So that's the first question. And then the second question, which to me, Mr. Chairman, is a real good question, is we should not reward contractors who do work for us and do not follow the code that we have given them to follow. They're not even following the contract that we gave them. So how is it that, Mr. Chairman, to any administration, for anyone who's doing contract work, will continue to receive millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars in contract work for the city of Cleveland? And Mr. Chairman, that's the question. So it's not an issue about favoritism. It's an issue that you did a job wrong, very bad, and you haven't fixed it. And you keep going back and forth. So who has the power? Is it the contractor or is it the city? Because see, at the end of the day, if we don't hold accountable and draw in the line in the sand that says, if you come into this city, you're going to follow our rules. And we got to follow it from the basic level all the way on out to the street. And if we do it that way, and I think part of it, Mr. Chairman, would be how do we handle those type of situations? Those two questions, and I'm going to yield.
So through the chairman and the councilman, first of all, some of the things that we've done regarding inspectors to be proactive and to enhance the skills and abilities they have. First of all, is we have two sets of inspectors. One are on the capital projects, and the other set is on the permitting side of things with utility cuts and folks that go into our right of way to do cuts. One thing that we've done, we started, I think 2022 was a rotation process so that folks can rotate from one group to the other so that they can pick up skills and so that they can learn from the more experienced inspectors instead of only seeing a little piece of what our department does. The other thing that we started just this year with the 2024 bond sales is that we have hired a firm that does on-call inspection services for us. It does a couple things. It helps us with our capacity, but it also helps train our folks with how to do things to an industry standard. That contract just got put into place. We have always had our general engineering services contract that had inspection services, but now we specifically have a contract for program management and construction services to try to ease some of the capacity issues that we're having. I will say that the general engineering services contract, as I mentioned, does have inspection services. So for instance, for Johnstone Parkway, which was a heavy lift to try to get it done in one construction season, we did use that contract for inspection. Not to say that they run out there and do it all on their own. You still have to oversee the consultant that you're hiring. But that's an example of how we upped our game with both inspection and oversight for a roadway that happens to be in your ward, but it's one of the techniques that we now put into place that we didn't have before.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the fact that you have the online service for inspections. That certainly, hopefully, will help. So that's a short-term fix. So what are we doing in terms of a long-term fix? And then, before you go there, right? Would you be in agreement with me that if we have contractors that do work for us and they're not performing at the levels they should be for us when we do the inspections, have a policy in place where they get no more work from the city until they right the wrong that we have in front of us?
Through the chairman and the councilman, so there is. It's not up to our department whether you bar somebody from doing work in the city, but there is a process through purchases and supplies, I believe, where you document issues with a contractor so that I don't think that we as a city have the ability to outright bar somebody, but you document the file so that if, let's just say, a contractor submits for a job with Department of Public Utilities, that department can see that Capital Projects has had an issue with the contractor and can decide to pass over them. So my responsibility right now is to make sure that we as a department document and paper the file so that we have a chance of making those arguments in the future.
So, Mr. Chairman, and that's the way it's being done, correct, right now, currently. Mr. Chairman, I would be the program doesn't work. So that's the reason why I asked the question, would you be open to changing the policy from where it's at right now, because it's not working? And you reward a contractor to do A, B, and C. Contractor comes in and only does A, but doesn't do B and C. Then this was a reward out of your department. And so then therefore, Mr. Chairman, you're responsible for that contractor because it's your inspectors that have to go out there and see if they've done that work correctly. So, Mr. Chairman, my proposition is that you have an accountability system, real simple, black and white. This is nothing that needs to be complicated. If you're not following the specifics that we've given you to do this work, and you haven't done this work, you can't get any more work until you get that first job right. Show some consistency in your work. And then, Mr. Chairman, lastly, which I think is another big problem, and I'm quite sure you probably been working to resolve it, is streamlining the process so we can allow for new contractors to come in and do work in the city of Cleveland and be able to pay them in a timely way. Those are most important issues. If this city is going to get serious about improving its infrastructure, then it has to have an accountability system in place to deal with those road contractors who continue to disrespect our neighborhood, dump debris on the side of the road, commandeer vacant lot locations, put all of their mess in place, make our neighborhoods look bad, make me look bad as an elected official because I'm dealing with their garbage. And I got photos to show you going all the way back. And so at the end of the day, they should have some respect because they're not doing it like that in Shaker. They're not doing it in Maple Heights. They're not doing it like that in Warrensville and Garfield. They're right border against me. When those people go in to do work, they're on top of it. They have a plan, a safety plan for their labor force and the community as a whole. They tell us about it ahead of time, what's going on before it happens. So those communities are well aware. Signs are erected in those communities, in those neighborhoods, very professional, letting them know about what kind of work is going to happen in the community. So we have to tighten up our operation so we're just as professional in every aspect as these other communities that surround us. Now, the city of Cleveland, other cities have set their standards to us. And so we got to get back into proposition, Mr. Chairman, and I won't labor this any longer, to make sure that we're doing those two areas. And I got other areas here, but I don't want to talk about that now. I just want to make sure that I'm bringing to your attention very clearly that we need to do this in our community. We need to come up with a plan, if you can, to hold accountable those contractors that are doing work and not behaving as contractors should and following the basic stuff that we're giving them money to do, and then they're not performing it. And then we're like, what? This is what, 5 years, 6 years now down the road from this one street? And so then how many other streets have they not done right? How many other contractors haven't followed the specifications? When we're asking for 10-inch thick concrete and they give us 6 inches concrete, they're cheating us. And so where's our inspectors to know that we're being cheated? And those are the types of things, Mr. Chairman, to the director that I've had to go back and forth in the previous administration, in addition to current on issues in the neighborhood. So I shouldn't have to do that. I should know that our department is so professional, they don't need my eyes to look at it. You got your inspectors that took care of it. Not me to go, or a citizen to say, hey, why is concrete running down the road into the sewer? Why did they dump all that concrete down the sewer? You know, and I tell them, I don't know. And then I go out there and see all of this big giant puddle of concrete just flowing down into the sewer. Those types of things makes us look very bad as a city. And so if we can correct those things, I'm not saying, and I don't want the listening audience to hear this, this may not be happening everywhere, and this may be just isolated incidents. So, but I would like, Mr. Chairman, to the director, if we can, look at those two areas, how we hold accountability, how do we move forward right now with what we're talking about hiring on inspectors? And then what seems to be the hang up? Why can't we get these inspectors in?
All right, thank you, Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your
All right, thank you,
patience.
Councilman Jones. We're trying to be patient with you. All right, I'm gonna go to Councilman Starr and then come back to Casey.
Thank you, Chair. My only question would be not to go more in depth, similar to Councilman Joe Jones when he talked about the street signage. I noticed that during the ARPA request dollars that we had streets initial signage, and then they added another one that says the ARPA requests. What was the reason for those street signages? Just because those seemed a little bit more direct to several the dollars from ARPA from Joe Biden as compared to what we have from the city. So what was the changes or what was the reason through the chair?
Through the chairman and the councilman, so there was a request made to the city of Cleveland to do better advertising, that our projects were funded with ARPA dollars, and to reference President Joe Biden. And it was a request that went out to cities that received ARPA funding, and our mayor made it a directive for us to put out that additional signage. The goal was to add signage, not to take down the old signage. It was a format that was provided to meet the federal guidelines for signs. I acknowledge Councilman Jones's, comments about how overall signage can be improved. That particular sign was added at the request of folks that were trying to advertise the funding that President Biden put into our neighborhoods.
And thank you. And through the chair, from that advertisement, who covers the cost for those signage? Was that money that was already allocated inside of the funding that was given, or was it additional city first funding that went to those marketing through the chair?
Through the chairman and the councilman, the funding for the signs came out of the project, whichever type of project it was, it came out of that project.
All right, and through the chair, when it comes to advertising for different projects that MOCAP does, what is the actual process of getting the information to the residents? Prime example is, I know with street signage, the additional back to the basics, some of the streets that we got allocated from council support, those streets, what was the marketing strategy or the advertisement so people can know when to park on the street or not to park on the street? How did that get to the residents? What's the process for that selection so the residents can understand what is going on with their streets through the chair?
So I'll start and then I'll hand it over to Rick. But so it's kind of a two-part strategy with signage. One is at either end of the street, there's signage just to let them know that the project is coming. And that's both, advertising, if you will, but also knowledge that there's a project coming. And then as we get closer to construction, we do a press release about the construction coming, and then Rick can speak to how we actually sign on the street when construction is about to begin.
And to the chair, to the councilman, in addition to what the director mentioned, the contractor and our inspectors will go out when we're getting close to having to have cars off the street, that they put on multiple poles, trees along that route, signage that say no parking, the work is from this time to that time on these days. So it's right on poles, trees along the limits of the project.
Okay, and to the chair, so you don't have nothing in your budget to mail something out, just hypothetically, speaking to the residents in that close proximity, in that precinct, in that different area? Is that anything in the budget? Just going for future preference.
Through the chairman and the councilman, so we do not have a budget set aside for mailers, but I can tell you that our public engagement consultants, that is something that they're going to address with us through, to figure out what is the best way to make sure that people are effectively communicated with. Maybe that's something that's going to come out of it, but we literally just kicked it off, a month before.
And through the chair, do MOCAP office have any social media presence as well, through the chair? Or is it all through City of Cleveland social media?
Through the chairman of the council, currently it's all through City of Cleveland. We do have our website, but we don't have, outside of our, stellar Phil Kidd, who does our trails program and Complete and Green Streets, he has a very active social media content for our department. But besides that, we really don't have departmental socials.
Yep, and a couple other questions. From the TDS, tree damage sidewalk standard, I know we're getting ready for budgeting and we're getting ready to figure everything out. Is there a way or a system in place for us to get caught up on tree damage sidewalk? I've had residents come to me about streets that was done long before I got elected, and then they were talking about some damaged sidewalks that was never ever done. I know that last budget, this current budget that we're in, we're actually got another contractor or another group of people, a construction company that is helping us play catch up, and I think it was more from 1 to 2. Now, one was east side, one is west side, or however it was used. But I think we're here today and we still haven't been caught up. So do we have any plans for the budget cycle that you may need more work done to get caught up on those tree damaged sidewalks? The reason why I bring that up is because as council members, we hear all the calls about what didn't happen on a street that happened, and they do listen to some of these YouTube videos, and they find out what is what, and they want to know, to the resident standpoint, where we are at as far as getting tree damaged sidewalks caught up from, I say, the last 5 years up to date. To the chair.
Yes, through the chairman and the councilman, great questions. So there's two things happening with the tree damage sidewalk program. We drew a line in the sand for 2023 and the past, and we used on-call inspectors because they had the capacity to do it quickly, and they went through all of the streets that needed to have tree damage sidewalk program work done, and they identified the exact addresses and what needed to be done at each of those locations. Now, I say capacity because our inspectors on staff are out, inspecting other jobs. So we hired a third party to do those inspections, and then we took all of those locations and we bid it out as a capital project, meaning instead of going through our requirements contract, we bid it out as a capital project with, money that we had from bond sales. And then if you recall, council added money through the budget reallocation process last year. And so we got our bids in, and the good news is we could have moved forward with the project. We had enough budget for it. Our concept was proven true that if you put it out to bid, the costs are going to get brought down than if you use the requirements contractor. But the issue was we had an unbalanced bid situation, and so we had to reject all the bids, and we're going to go back out to bid, I would say, in the next, definitely this year. So whether it's November or December, we're going to put that project back out to bid. If the bids come in as they did before, we'll be able to move forward because we do have enough funding to move forward with the project. The way that we put it out to bid, though, is we have a base bid, and then we have add-on portions of the backlogged work so that we can award up to where our budget is, and then if we need additional funding next year, we could do that. Hopefully, we won't need to do that. So that's our plan for catching up. I feel confident that we're going to figure out at least, if not all of it, the majority of it will go under construction next year and be finished next year. And then you have the 2024 tree damage sidewalk work, which will be handled by our requirements contract. There'll be some work, if the weather is decent, that would happen over the winter time, and the rest of the work would happen in the springtime. We're trying to not be too micromanaging of that contractor, in the sense that you want them to go out and do as much work as they can. They understand that if the weather turns, that they have to either, use, the blankets to cure the concrete over the wintertime, or they need to put in a temporary sidewalk so the residents aren't out there without a sidewalk if the weather turns and they're doing work over the wintertime.
Thank you. And as I wrapped on my last question to the chair, I know we talked about it briefly about the recreation centers, definitely. Just to MOCAP team, just want to reiterate the outdoor pool at Lonnie Burton is a top priority for the residents in Ward 5. That pool itself is I think is, correct me if I'm wrong, through the chair to Rick, is that one of the Olympic size or one of the few that we have in Ohio or something like the historic presence of the Lonnie Burton Recreation Center pool? I know it's a huge pool, big size, and since I've been in office, the pool hasn't been opened. I know we got leakage going on. I know we're trying to figure out where the repairs at, and I'm looking at the percentage of the maintenance of upgrades that we're doing to Lonnie Burton, having that new playground, having a new basketball court, getting ready to add that fence to secure the Wayne Browder Field, and also thinking about exploring different options for the baseball field. Having that pool open, it completes the whole community, because that is something that we've advocated, and everything that is needed for the community. And also, I remember my time when I was 15 and a half, 16 years old. A lot of folks and young people got their first job as a lifeguard at Lonnie Burton Pool. So that pool is very important for the neighborhood. Having that open is very, very important. So I just want to reiterate, please, we have to get that done. We have to get that done through the chair.
And through the chairman and the councilman, I know that you know this, but for the sake of the folks that are watching, if Mark could just give, not in the details, Mark, but just, we're really addressing this head on, and just a little bit of the challenges we're having, because I don't want folks to think that we're not trying to get this pool open.
Thank you, Director. Through the chairman to the councilman. Yeah, we're very aware of the concerns, and we're working closely right now with property management to find out what strategies we might be able to have and what resources we can bring to honor your request, to figure out what the plan is to bring that pool back into use. It's a large challenge given the scale of it. I think the size is a big piece of what makes it so difficult, but also it's that aging plumbing underneath the pool deck, not to get into the weeds, but that is one of them. It makes all of our pools challenging, our outdoor pools. It's also what the pool is made out of. So there's multiple layers here, as you know, but we are working closely with property management to figure out what the best plan to address it is.
And through the timeline, through the chair, when you say working with property management, do we have like a timeline to get someone out there to be able to say, this is how we identify the leakage in that pipes that's underneath the pool? Or do we have some type of time frame? Because once again, we're wrapping up the year, and then as soon as this winter comes, it flies by, then it's spring, the next you know, we're talking about summer, and the first thing people call is, well, it's the first time we get 90-degree weather. The first thing they're going to call me is, and tag me on social media, is why Lonnie Burton outdoor pool is not open. And I'm like, hey, me saying the same thing I said last year, the year before that, we're working on it. To the residents, they're like, well, what is being done? And that's where it burdens me. And like I told you, as we're getting ready to do all this, as we're finishing up all these upgrades, I want to host a field day at Lonnie Burton so we can be able to use all of the upgrades that we've had. I know we're working on different locker rooms possibly in there, definitely new art for the pool area, but the pool got to be open in order for it to be able to be a complete. So what is the timeline for your outsource or working with property management to identify the actual problem as well as solutions to get that pipe fixed to the chair? A realistic one.
Through the chair to the councilman, we have been working this fall with property management, with our city plumbers, as well as with a American leak detection specialist to get our best handle on an assessment of the exact condition of those pipes and the extent to which they need to be repaired and or replaced. I will just say that to date, what we've learned is that the leaks are so extensive that to hold enough water to be able to do proper testing, we've had to look at alternative means of leak detection, including gas, to figure out what the extent is.
And to the chair, as I wrap up, I'm sorry, Chair. So when you talk about leak detection, that comes from just the age of the pool. mainly what can cause it to be something that leakage that you can't figure out? Is it because the pool is so old, or we need to replace all of those? Through the chair.
Through the chair to the councilman, yes, it's a combination of age and design. A large pool, a pool of that scale that has an aluminum tank, and again, I'm trying to avoid the weeds, but I really want to help everybody, help us all understand better. It's a combination of all of those factors, the sheer scale and what an outdoor pool goes through in the wintertime and how that impacts all the connections between the pipe and the pool tank. There's multiple places from the joints in the pipes that are buried to where those pipes connect to the tank that are under enormous stress. So I think it's a combination of size, but as with a lot of our pools, it's the age. So the worst case scenario is that all the piping would require complete replacement.
Yep. Thank you so much, Mark, and through the director. Upgrading a pool such as this or pools outdoor, does that count as possible infrastructure upgrades as well? Do that count to anything regarding infrastructure? Because I'm thinking of different dollars that is available that I heard from National Leagues of Cities this past week regarding infrastructure. So if we put together a package and figure out what type of funding from infrastructure dollar that's available from the federal dollars to possibly get us brand new pipes and get upgraded pipes to bring them up to modernize the pool, is that something that the city can possibly do or use infrastructure dollars to do as far as repairs? To the chair.
Through the chairman and the councilman, yes, pool improvements qualify as infrastructure. It qualifies for capital improvement plan dollars. Last year's budget, we allocated $100,000 for the leak detection, and it's just a challenge. But if you can share with us the ideas that or the information that you received at National League of Cities, we would welcome to explore it. It would be a combination of MOCAB, Public Works, as well as new Director Nichols for Park and Recreation. And just to let you know, we are starting regular meetings with those three departments between now and springtime, specific to pools, so that we can look at all the pools and spray basins throughout the city proactively. Not that it hasn't been proactive in the past, but with all three departments together on a regular basis between now and then, so that we can really, we know this one isn't open. We want to make sure that there aren't others that are closed for multiple years as well.
All right, thank you. Yep, and I'm actually jumping on a call with National League, with federal government regarding Infrastructure Hub tomorrow afternoon, just to get an introduction of what their application process is, and I will be forward to send it over to you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Councilman Brian Case.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the director, I am all for small business, right, and trying to help them out. But you obviously know that some of the small businesses can't handle the capacity that the city I don't want to say demands, but needs of them. When you have that situation, when you have a contractor who just cannot perform the duty that they believe that they could have or had the capacity to, but are unable to do so, what is the strategic plan going forward to rectify that situation when that contractor messes up and makes the situation worse than it was? And I'm not talking the big projects. I'm talking the smaller projects where we're trying to help the mom and pop businesses.
So through the chairman and the councilman, on the 50/50 program, there was a contractor that we had to terminate their agreement.
Well, I know it well.
And yeah, and so it happens. So our process internally was, discussions with Chief T-Win, discussions with Director Mitchell, discussions about whether it was, something that could improve or was just a situation that needed to be terminated. This particular one we needed to terminate, but it was, and not that they're not great people and they do great work in other
nice
avenues,
guys,
but this particular line of construction wasn't what they were best at. But that being said, it's incumbent upon us to work work closely with OEO when these firms are identified to make sure that they're going to be successful. So I put that on me going forward in the next year and the next round of contracts. But the good news is 2 of the 3 worked out very well, and Division of Streets was able to pick up the work that the third contractor wasn't able to perform. And also the good news is that particular contractor had a relatively small number of locations, I think maybe 8 locations. You obviously had to, to deal with it, but we did react, pretty quickly.
Well, Mr. Chairman, to the director, so we just learn, right?
Yes.
We learn from our, so what are the safeguards that are in place to assure that these smaller businesses that we want to help be successful are the right ones that are chosen, and that they're going to be able to complete the job to the satisfactory of not only the city, but the resident whose property they're working on as well?
So through the chairman and the councilman, so over the winter time, we're putting together specifications of what the contractor, qualifications rather, of what the contractor needs to be suited to do. And and then generally speaking, we put a lot of extra staff time on these contractors as well to make sure that they understand what our requirements are, what specifications they have to meet in the field. And so it's a lot of time that we spend with them, but it's important to make sure that there's a quality work product when they're done. But we don't have, we're focused on finishing up the work right now, but over the wintertime, we'll be putting together those qualifications.
All right, well, Mr. Chairman, to the director, I hope going forward that, as we're helping out these small mom and pop, locally owned small businesses, that we have safeguards in place to protect ourselves and the homeowners. Again, we want to see them successful. And then on another note, Mr. Chairman, to the director, just because I know you have a lot to present today, but I just have one other question, and that is regarding the staffing of your department. Are you guys at capacity?
Through the chairman to the councilman, do we have any vacancies?
Correct.
No, we currently have 5 vacancies. And it's for a variety of different reasons. We always have an engineering position open. It's just difficult to hire. We just had someone retire last month. We also had someone move up.
I mean, five's not bad. We understand those ones. But, Mr. Chairman, to the director, when you present your budget to us, you're not asking for any more additional staff members, are you?
Through the chairman to the councilman, we are actually asking for more staff. And I can tell you what those staff are. We're asking for a departmental budget person, which would allow the budget person that we have in engineering and construction, Rick Shop, to split from the everyday invoicing to help with focusing on the bond spend downs, putting together the capital improvement plan, all the departmental-wide things that go on top of processing invoices. And one of our challenges is really too many tasks going through one person, and so we're going to ask for a new departmental budget, which will split out the everyday work. We're also looking for another chief architect to work in architecture and site development due to the number of projects that are going through. They are fully staffed up in architecture and site development. And then there's also the restoration of one of the engineering positions that kind of mysteriously disappeared when the vacancy pool idea was created. So it's to restore a position that we had from somebody. We had two engineers that retired. At
Mr. Chairman, to the director, so you're not having a staffing problem in MoCap?
Through the chairman and the councilman, I would say our staffing problem is hopefully it's hard to hire engineers.
Right. No, we get that, but I mean, you're not coming to us with 45 vacancies or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. And then, Mr. Chairman, to the director, with this new position, are you guys putting yourselves in a position to hire that individual as soon as possible, or are you going to wait until the budget is passed and then wait another 6 months to try to fill that position, and then wait another 9 months for them to be onboarded by another department that's out of your control?
Through the Chairman, Councilman, I understand your question 100%. What I would like to do is use a position that I have currently vacant to hire that person and shuffle the deck, if you will.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm able to do that, but that's what I would like to do, because a lot of the questions, even that Councilman Jones had about, growing, new businesses, it all gets down to invoicing.
Okay.
And we have great staff, but there's too much volume going through.
All right, thank you. Thank you, I appreciate it. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Councilman Casey. Okay, Councilwoman Marr.
Thank you very much. Director, I first of all just want to start by saying thank you to your staff. Some of the most exciting projects and most complicated projects that we get to work on flow through your office. And, despite a lot of turnover and a lot of different projects moving back and forth, you guys have managed to keep most of the balls up in the air most of the time. And you have a good sense of which ones are rubber and which ones are glass. But I do want to talk a little bit about the issues with the 50/50 sidewalk program. Not because you haven't worked very hard to address it, right? I truly think you have, and I can see from both my conversations with residents and from the materials that you sent over that the new contractors you've onboarded are really trying to work their way through the backlog, especially with this extended construction season. You guys are moving fast. But I am stuck on some of the dignity and respect issues for my residents who sent in checks to the city, sometimes years ago, and then did not get this work done, and then weren't communicated with until they reached out to my office. I then bugged your office. You then reached out, but it would take multiple passes. And I can't stop thinking about some of my residents, and I'm looking at the spreadsheet you sent over of Ward 12 individuals who have submitted, who had paid for 50/50. And again, for the listening audience, 50/50 means that the resident pays 50% of the construction cost to fix their sidewalk. And we are desperate to get them to do this because we don't have enough money to fix our sidewalks. Our sidewalks are not ADA accessible. We want people to use this program, and we want them to have a good experience in this program. And if I were hiring a private contractor to deal with my sidewalks, and I put down a deposit for them to do the work, and then it took them more than a year to do it, I would be outraged. I would be filing a complaint with the Better Business Bureau. I would be filing a complaint with the AG. And I'm going to be honest, I'd want my money back. And I want to talk a little bit about what it would take for the city to return to the residents the money they paid for the 50/50 sidewalk program if the city took more than a full calendar year, a full 12 months to get the work done. Through the chair to the director, do you have any sense of what that number might be?
Through the chairman of the councilwoman, I do not have, off my fingertips, I don't have what that number would be. But I do have a couple remarks. I fully appreciate the communication and dignity issue. And I also have been working with staff on better communication specific to the 50/50 program. And I know we need to do better, but I am aware of the need to have better communication. The one thing I'll say about refunds, though, is we do make refunds anytime somebody requests them. But we're also holding the old prices for all the folks that not want to wait for the work, but are waiting for the work. So of course we can refund if you choose, if the resident wishes to refund them, not an issue at all. But I will say that at this point in the waiting game, I don't know that it makes financial sense for the resident. Even if they want to come back to the program, they're going to pay more money because contract prices continue to go up.
Yeah. Oh, to be clear, I think the city should do the work. I just think we should pay these residents back for their portion. They made a bargain with the city. They said, I'm going to put up 50% of this money and you're going to do the work. And then we took their money and then we often didn't do the work. I've got people, one of my ones deposited their check 2 years ago on Indiana Avenue. 10/17/2022 is when the city deposited their check. And I think the city not only needs to do that sidewalk as soon as possible, but they need to pay the resident back. I don't think that is a fair way for the city to operate. And as we fix this program, frankly, we need to jumpstart it, because I'm looking at this list of 237 people who were in the 50-50 backlog, and the majority of them are now complete because of your efforts to restart this program. But I guarantee you that we have 237 people who are not praising the 50-50 sidewalk program to their neighbors and to their friends and to their coworkers and encouraging them to participate in it. We essentially have to relaunch this program now that we've fixed the contracting issues, and we need to tell residents that it's something that they can trust, that they can work with, that we will be responsive to them. And I don't think unless we kind of make it right, that we'll ever successfully do that. So I would like to request, I know you did send an updated spreadsheet, and I do appreciate that, with the date checks were received for all of the outstanding properties that have not yet been completed. So I'm happy to share that with my colleagues, because I know that each of us have a number of these in our ward. But I would like the complete spreadsheet of the date the checks were deposited, including the ones that have been completed up until now, so that we can get a sense of what it would look like to frankly say we're sorry to these residents that they were asked to wait oftentimes a year and a half with no communication, and their money in the city's pockets. So I would like that number and also that updated spreadsheet, so that my colleagues and I can all get a sense of how much money was really sitting in this program, and what it would cost to essentially disgorge it back to the residents and help us rebrand this program going forward.
Through the chairman and the councilwoman, I acknowledge the program wasn't flawless, but to reimburse all of the residents who have participated in the 50-50 program, even when the work has been done, I guess I have to remind folks that the sidewalks are the residents' responsibility. So it's really the city that's agreeing to put in their 50%. So otherwise, it's 100% residents' responsibility. So I don't, I'm not sure what legislative authority we have to do reimbursements or to pay for sidewalks if they're not part of the 50-50 program.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious to see what that authority would be.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I know this would be unusual, and obviously on a lot of these, you've now completed the work. I think what I'm going towards is how we demonstrate to our residents that we take seriously the flaws in this program, that it wasn't just a one-off, it wasn't just a couple months delay. It was a year, it was 2 years. It was a length of time where we had residents who didn't have that money in their pockets, and then the work wasn't getting done. And I understand that there'll be some pushback about the idea of refunding residents when the work has been completed, but given truly the breakdown of this program over the past few years, I'd like to know what that number is, and at least get a sense of it, so that we can assess whether it's a way for us to acknowledge the mistakes of the past and truly reboot it, so that more people will actually work with the city in the future.
And through the chairman and the councilwoman, I would like to just stress for those that are listening, we don't have a backlog of 260 some locations. I think our backlog is in the 50s or 60s. I'm not sure how much work's been done over the last couple of weeks, but just so that folks are listening, it's not hundreds of people that are lacking the work to be done. And we do expect that all that work would be finished this year.
Yeah, and to be clear, my understanding is that's because we've had this sprint in the last couple of weeks and months now that we've gotten the new contracts completed, to lower the backlog, but the backlog has been higher than that in recent years.
And through the chairman and the councilman, just to highlight for everybody too, there's a number of reasons for that. Primarily, we put out a requirements contract for the 50-50 program, and the prices that we got were so high that it was a barrier that we felt residents would not participate at all. So that's why we pivoted in 2022 to the Division of Streets. Without increasing their overall capacity, they agreed to take on the 50-50 program. It didn't happen fast, but there were some residents you see on that list that were taken care of through that program. When the requirements contract expired, because of course you can only, there's two ways that you can avoid a requirements contract. You either do the work yourself or you bid it out as a capital project. And so when that contract expired, then we were able to put the small contracts together, which, as you referenced, or as you know from emails, were, I think, put into place at the end of August, beginning of September. So that's why there's a sprint now to get the work done before the end of the year. And actually, I think we missed the August date, so I think it was in after Labor Day that contracts were put into place, as well as a tree contract.
Got it. Thank you. I really am trying to balance what I think has been a real marshaling of forces to try to resolve these issues with, I mean, truly just frustration from my residents who have to call me 2, 3, 4 times just to get a response about a cashier's check that they took to City Hall and that was deposited more than a year ago. I don't think that's a responsible way for a government to operate, and I think we got to figure out how to deal with that from here. Frankly, if we were a private business, right, and we were trying to start over, we'd have a big like under new management sign on our branding for next year. And frankly, I would encourage MoCap to do that. Say something like, new contractors, new process, and set an expectation in that flyer about how long you think it would take if you went into the program, you called the number, you got a quote, you given a cashier's check, how long should residents be expecting to wait? And put that right up front on the flyer. We really have to do some repair work because the reputation of this program is not good. And this is a good city service that, if it's working well, that we're offering, but we've got to figure out how to repair things from here. So I really do appreciate it, and I really look forward to my residents on Indiana, my residents on Admiral, my residents on South Ridge and Judy, to them getting Holden, that one's been waiting for a long time. For those ones to get done and close out this chapter where we have residents who've been waiting more than a calendar year for the city to complete their work. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman Mara. Director, can you figure out where you left off it?
Yes.
And continue on in our presentation? Sir. Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to jump back into the PowerPoint here, and the next section is it's we have more comprehensive lists later on, but just to list some of the successes, generally speaking. Real estate kicks butt all the time for purchase, sale, and lease of the city's property. Part of what they do is exemption of tax exemptions for properties, which this year was well over $500,000. And 2 critical hires were made. They had one person that got promoted to another department and one that retired. So Commissioner was able to hire 2 great hires this year. Engineering and construction, if you go just straight down, they manage a lot of work, currently over $600 million of work in various stages, from design to construction to closeout. Grant funding, I mentioned a little bit earlier, but $110 million total in grant funding. Excellent work on grant funding. And then they completed 3 critical hires, 2 of which was in the permit section, and as a way to try to hire, knowing that we're having challenges with hiring engineers. Those 2 hires were non-engineers with the technical skills that we needed for the permitting section. So just to highlight that. Architecture and site development on the top. They're currently managing about $250 million worth of work, and 16 rec centers and public facilities. They completed the design, grant funding of over $1 million, 2 critical hires. Mark, at the end of the table, he was promoted. Michael Reeder was, he's a landscape architect. He was also promoted. And then we backfilled both of those positions with great new hires. And then for the bonds, I have more slides coming up, but 2023 was 40.1 million that related to MOCAP. There's obviously additional bonds that relate to other departments. And then 11.7 was what was spent on the road and bridge bonds, public facilities, 14.7 million. And you'll see those numbers are going to remain somewhat high because of the police headquarters project that is in full force. Each month, the invoice for that project is, now it's around $3+ million per month. So those numbers will remain high. But there's another slide here on bond financing. So this slide here, I do want to go through a little bit, just because it's a little bit not confusing, but where we have 2021 at the top and 77% spent, that's actually the accumulation of all of the old bonds. So we should have, probably named it a little bit different, but it's an important benchmark up there to show that of the 21 and before bonds, the spending rate was about 77%. Now that's not where we should be, but it's just giving you an idea of what our spend rate typically is. And I did mention to you that we've done a couple things recently. We split the design funding from the construction funding. And then also there's big projects like the police headquarters project that was, $90 million just for the construction that's now kicking off when the bonds were sold a long time ago. The more relevant numbers are 22 and 23, just so you can see the amount related to MOCAP and the amount that we have spent. And I would say that the 2023 number is somewhat low because the bonds were sold at the end of the year. And this year, we literally just got the proceeds into our account at the end of October, beginning November. So those bond dollars are now going to start being spent more heavily in the springtime. But I know you had a special caucus on, bond proceeds. COVID had a big impact on what we were able to do once we had the bond proceeds. There was a lot of projects that if they weren't in construction, they didn't start construction until after COVID. We didn't signal that to the construction community. If they wanted to start, they were able to start projects, but unless a project was actually started or somebody was really eager to keep their workers active, then a lot of projects were just put on hold. And then, of course, the police headquarters project, which was big dollars that the project, location was changed a few times. So that's happy to answer any questions on bonds. It might be better to go through the whole thing and then come back, though, because I'm almost done with the.
Yeah, I mean,
or do you
we
want to stick on
can go
bonds?
through, if we can go through the whole thing. So can we get a breakdown of the 2022 and 2023? Out of the, like in 2023, out of those, the 66% spent. Can you touch on the things that's not being spent and why, and when do you anticipate them to be started?
Yes. So I don't have a list of projects. Maybe I do have a list of projects here. But oftentimes a project is not commenced because there's you're accumulating funds for a bigger project. So like the North Coast Connector, you're accumulating project funds for a much larger project. Now, typically, you don't allocate bond funds to that type of project except for the design portion of it. but there's not a lot of projects that are just not being worked on as much as they're not in full construction so that the funds are being pulled down rapidly. So how would I better describe that?
Felt like that was a good
Is it? Yeah.
Okay.
So, but what I can do for you, I remember last year at City Council, I gave you all of the projects that bonds were allocated from 2018 to the current. And then with that was, what is the status of the project?
Okay.
Meaning, is it completed and what was actually spent on it versus is it in design and there's still a big balance on it? So I think that's the best way to provide that information to you again. And then with that, you and council can come back with questions on particular projects. But we certainly endeavor to get the projects programmed and under construction as soon as we can. Sometimes there's a design issue that we have to work through first, but typically, once we get through design, we try to move it right into construction.
Okay. All right, you continue on with your,
Okay, so I think it's cut off a little bit at the top there, but these are just some of the statistics. Yeah, the top line just says Division of Engineering and Construction. You know, these are by the numbers, the amount of work that that we've done, and then Division of Architecture and Site Development. And you know, Rick and Mark can speak to any specific questions for these stats.
so the director, so the back to basics is all of, do we have any more projects that has to be done in back to basics or they're all complete?
Yep, so the next, the final two slides are back to basics related.
Okay.
So all the playgrounds except for Thurgood Marshall are done. Thurgood Marshall is on hold because of the Western Reserve Land Conservancy's Huff Green Space project, and the playground is being installed in coordination with that project. So that would be sometime in 2025. All of the other playgrounds were completed. Of the basketball courts, all the courts are done. There's striping that needs to happen at Halloran, and that's temperature sensitive. And I think we're past the good weather to allow us to do that. And we did try to get the contractor out before the end of the year, and the temperatures weren't consistently high enough. And then these are all the roadways that were done. This is sort of a random breakdown just so they all fit onto one page. But the only streets that we have left are brick streets, and then the portion of East 33rd Street that goes under the railroad tracks in Ward 7. That one also needs to be done in 2025. And that's, but those are the only streets. We have 3 brick streets and then that portion of East 33rd Street.
Okay. Okay. Do I have any other questions from the committee? Councilwoman House Jones.
Thank you. Through the chair to the team here, good afternoon. I had a question. I saw you listed the ADA requirements or
Councilwoman, we can't hear you. Can you?
For the 394 ADA ramps that you discussed, does that include, how would I say, the traffic enhancements requirements? Let me ask the question. What are the requirements for ADA accessibility when it comes to crosswalks? So for those who may not be visually impaired, to be able to have the sound. Again, it has come up. It came up in my September meeting, which has been repeated, and I know my office is working with 3rd District to kind of work on that, but I feel like it is connected to this department, and so really trying to get the understanding, what are those requirements, and how do those requests Just explain it a little bit.
So, Councilwoman, I'm going to have Rick get into some of the details, but it's a combination of our department and then Public Works, where traffic engineering is usually involved in those discussions. And then Rick's going to kind of talk about the parameters and how it gets rolled out.
Thank you. Through the chair to the councilwoman. The ADA ramps are required by federal law to be installed whenever you do a project such as resurfacing, rehabilitation, reconstruction. There's very specific guidelines. Each ADA ramp has to be designed individually for our projects. For the one part that's always put in are those truncated domes, so folks without vision, they're able to know that they're coming, they're at a crosswalk, they have that textural feel. As far as auditory things, I don't believe that's a requirement. I'll have to check. But we as a standard don't put those in. We put have the domes in for the people so they can feel the presence of the ADA ramp. I will check what, if any, requirements there are for the auditory ones. Maybe it's somebody that's handicapped that is requesting it, and we can honor that request. Sort of like when someone needs a handicap parking sign at their home, traffic engineering will evaluate it, and if necessary, put something there for them. So I'll have to look into that one relative to the auditory crossing.
Through the chair to the team, I guess, thank you for that. So outside of what's requirement from the federal government offering a suggestion, if there's a way for the department or the team collectively to do an assessment on where are the places, and paths and movement of those who have varying different abilities, and how we are designing our city to be accommodating of those different abilities. I strongly believe that's important, and it can not only be just limited to one resident's experience. As we know, many people just probably will never say anything, but if we are utilizing the data that we are looking at, census data that might talk about projections on population, places, and people, mobility is a whole thing for people, and so I think incorporating them in our program as we are looking at different things will be to the benefit of us all.
Through the Chairman and Councilman, great point. Not something that we had thought about, so we appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilwoman House. Councilwoman Gray.
Yes, hi. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. I just have a specific question pertaining to you have Division of Architect and Site Development. My question is, good morning.
Good morning.
Hi. My question is about Zelma George, about the drainage, about the outside drainage. When will have that been looked at as bidding out for a contractor to come in to look at the drainage and then to start it?
Thank you.
Chair to the chief.
And Chair to the Councilwoman, thank you for that question. I'm going to defer to Mark, and he's going to give you the latest and greatest.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director. Through the chair to the Councilwoman, good morning.
Good morning.
As you know, this is a very important project. That project, we are finalizing the bid documents to get down to purchases and supplies to solicit bids for the work. What we have done, we took some extra time because we were able to, with help from our consulting engineers, we're able to figure out hopefully an even more effective means of getting the water infiltration addressed underground. So that's a bid alternate that we have added. So it's taken a little more time. So right now we're planning on getting that downstairs and on the street in the next few weeks.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that. And also, could you just explain of the procedure and what is actually happening with the with the undergrounding, leakage going into the rec center to the audience on TV 20, so they can have a clear understanding of why this process gotten to this point, and you finally found an answer, and how and when this going to start. I know we have some information, as Zama Joy is saying, that most of the project's going to be completed by April 2025, but at least give them an overview of the process, and where we are today. Just to remind them of what we discussed a year ago versus till now.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Chair,
Councilwoman. Through the chair to the Councilwoman, yes, the water infiltrations date back to when the building was constructed. One of the beautiful features of the building, which is the walking track where you can walk continuously, where it ramps down to go underneath the entrance bridge to the center. That design, turns out that it went through a strata of rock below which there is substantial aquifer. So the decision, rather than raising the building, was made to punch through that and install waterproofing on the underside. That is a pretty constant water pressure that gets exerted on that waterproofing that was designed into the building. It is of such volume and constancy that it really can't be effectively pumped away, and that waterproofing that was put in place to keep the water from coming in has reached the end of its useful life. So what we are doing is creating a perimeter drainage system under the building where we're actually going to drain the water into the storm sewer system, which of course is a very involved effort. But we also like to do belt and suspenders, so the new waterproofing system that I had mentioned earlier is a back-of-the-wall system that should help to mitigate this for the foreseeable future. It will always be an ongoing maintenance issue, but we feel that by not relying on pumps and relying more on gravity to take the water away, but also in the instance that pressure won't go away completely on these walls that create the ramp, that creates the track that everybody loves, that this extra layer of waterproofing should go a long way towards mitigating this problem and allowing us to maintain it properly. Is that helpful?
Yes, well, that's clear enough. It's not my language, but I do basically have understanding of the process, because you've been at Zama George quite a few times to explain it over and over, and, even in language terms of people understanding the process. And I know, Chair, to Mark, I know you said that this might have to be done every 10 years, per se. Is that so or not?
Through the chair to the Councilwoman, no, it should not have to. It's sometimes very difficult to predict the useful life of systems that are underground. I think that the regular maintenance that will be required is of the drainage system, because we also have all the water coming off the roof. So the new pipes we're putting in will have to be cleaned out and to ensure their flow, and the catch basins will have to be cleaned out on a very regular basis. But we shouldn't be looking at replacement certainly for more than 10 years.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman Gray. Is there any other questions for the director about the MOCAP presentation? Any other comments for the director or his team? Director, we appreciate your presentation. You want to have some closing remarks?
No, I just want to thank you for your time. And,
Okay.
We heard your comments and appreciate your time today.
Okay, Director, I just like to speak with you for a moment after we adjourn. All right, seeing no further questions, the Municipal Services Operational Review is hereby adjourned.